Welcome back, everyone. Is here. And today I've got some r/traumatize them back for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. To pun or not to pun? No, I did not win the lottery. So I shop for my insurance bundles every couple of years because rates go up, and of course, shopping yields better deals. The usual questions come up for the home. Do you have a mortgage? Do you have car payments, etc.? Nope, it's all paid off. He started laughing. Come on, OP, tell me the truth. You won the lottery, didn't ya? As I had been a teacher for most of my career. Nope, no lottery. And he insisted. You won the lottery, you don't have to lie. He laughed. That was until I said, nope, my wife's brother died and left us all his life insurance. Yeah, the tone changed real quick. If I tell you I didn't win the lottery, why keep pushing to have me confess? It was super bizarre, but I guess he got his foot in his mouth for that one. I did not go with their company. Their rates weren't competitive, but I think he'll think twice about assuming someone's financial status. So I'm pretty new to the adulting world of hunting for insurance stuff, and I've only done it once, and that was the beginning, and I haven't gone around and shopped for insurance yet, but I assume that's probably going to happen when I turn 26, because I won't be on my parents' healthcare plan anymore. But anyways, tangent aside, the main thing I'm trying to get to is, for those of you who are adults, is it normal for insurance agents to ask you questions like this? I mean, this feels like it's asking some weirdly personal stuff. Maybe if I'm lucky enough, someone who works in insurance can inform us of whether or not this is normal or not. Is this just part of the job, or did this guy cross a line, or what? I'm genuinely asking here. Because to me, at least, it comes off that the insurance agent was originally just trying to shoot the shit and thought he caught OP in a lie and was pushing the matter even more and eventually crossed a line into unprofessionality and learned the lesson for it. That's my interpretation of this, but I'd also be curious to hear your opinions on this, as well as maybe if you work for an insurance agency. I want some of the deets. Is this improper behavior? I want to know. Mellow Wads. Want to let your children run around the store? Now you can be as worried as the workers are. This happened years ago while I was working at a craft store. Like most craft stores, there were walls of glass, ceramic, and other very breakable, very sharp items for sale. And this day, I was stocking one of those fragile sections. A woman came in with what felt like 10 plus children under 15, but turned out to be only 4 kids and let them loose to play tag/Marco Polo in the aisles where she shopped. After I had collided twice with these kids because they weren't watching where they were going, I decided to hunt down the mom before they, or I, got hurt. I had worked well enough customer service to know that if you asked directly for them to control their kids, they would get mad and refuse out of principle more often than not. So I decided to be sneaky and stand in the same aisle as her and pretend to be stalking something near her, and spoke into my work headset without actually pressing the button. Hey, did anyone get the broken glass from aisle 13? No? Okay, then I'll be over there in just a moment to get that cleaned up. Suddenly, the lady realized there might actually be danger in letting your young children sprint around a store, and she immediately gathered them all up, and they stayed by her side for the rest of the trip. After this, I used it every time a customer decided we were their free childcare, and it worked about 90% of the time. Edit spelling, corrected aisle to aisle. So, at the fast food restaurant that I worked at, it was my first job, they also had an entire froyo biz on the side. Technically speaking, it was a froyo shop that became a fast food shop. I'm gonna be specific on it. So there were froyo machines in the front. It was extremely common for kids to just walk in, crank the fucking lever on the froyo, try to scoop it with their hands and eat it, and just do gross shit. I would of course have to clean it up. It was messy, lots of problems with that, but that was just part of the job. It got to the point where this one family would do it so goddamn often, on almost a daily, and in one case, twice a day, they would come in and the parents would just let their kids spill froyo all over the place. Now, froyo is a milk product. That shit is sticky, it smells, it gets in the cracks of all the grates and all the other stuff, and it's a pain in the ass to clean. So what I started to do was I would count. I figured out how much 1 second of froyo cost on average. And whenever I would see the specific family come in, I would count roughly how many seconds the kids had just pulled the levers and just let the shit spill everywhere, and I would add that to their charge. When they asked me why it was more than usual, I just simply pointed to the fact that there was spilled froyo on the floor and told them I had to account for lost product. And if you're wondering, well, how come you never just kicked them out? Well, the owner was so bent out of shape about making sure that every customer was 100% satisfied in hopes they would return that he would essentially accept their business even if they treated the employees in store like shit. So we weren't allowed to ask customers to leave the premise unless they were actually destroying property, pretty much. And he didn't consider lost product to be destroyed property. So yeah, the only way that I could counter it so I no longer had to spend so much time mopping up froyo and taking apart the machines to clean them out was specifically to start charging them for the spilled froyo. So that was how I dealt with kids when I was working my first job. If you work in retail or customer service or any kind of food service or retail service or any of that kind of stuff, what's your go-to way to dealing with problematic children? I actually think what OP did here was pretty fucking brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant on two fronts because on one hand, you have the mother now worried that her kids are the one who broke the items and she's going to get charged for it. And on the other side of it, she now has to worry about there being broken glass and her kids can't just freely run around because they might cut themselves. Honestly, hats off to OP. Relevant ad 6975. Made my racist coworker uncomfortable after he made a joke. Oh well. I, 23 female, have been at my job for about a year. I'm one of the youngest in my department and one of the few women of my background. I usually ignore workplace banter, but one coworker, Stefan, 34 male, has a habit of making subtle comments that don't sit right with me. At first, it was small things. He'd ask where I'm really from, or joke about how I must be great at handling spicy food. I never made a big deal out of it. But last week at lunch, he decides that apparently I am lucky they probably needed to hit their diversity quota. I'm guessing he always does this sort of thing because everyone let out a good old chuckle. I almost hesitated, then I let it go and said, maybe. But it's crazy how I got promoted so fast while you've been in the same role for like 10 years? Maybe they have a quota for that too. I'm guessing everyone got uncomfortable because the room went dead silent. You could hear the clock on the wall almost. Stefan looked at me like a kicked dog and said that he was joking. I didn't really care to hear it, so I just smiled. Later, my manager told me that Stefan felt humiliated and that I should have been more professional. I said I responded the same way he spoke to me. One of the biggest rules in life is don't sling shit if you can't have shit slung back at you. We've all met or dealt with that one person that they'll just talk mad shit and throw insults out constantly, but the moment you roll the ball gently back to them to kind of play in the mud with them, suddenly you've committed the greatest and most heinous transgression against them possible and they just pull the straight out victim card and, make a big deal out of it. I tend to notice that people who are bigoted or racist or have pre-prejudices against people tend to have the softest and most fragile of egos to the point where a single poke will pop their balloon and make them feel inadequate and suddenly you're being unnecessarily rude to them. Buddy here in this post was pretty much making jokes constantly about OP's ethnicity and then hitting them with the, you probably only got promoted because you're a diversity hire. Then OP promptly, in front of everyone, was hit with an aluminum bat to the shins and brought to his knees. But it is most certainly telling that when the person OP was dealing with told their joke, everyone was cackling and laughing about it, but the moment things were dished out, the room went silent. I'll let you guys probably draw the same conclusions that I have, and we'll just leave it at that. HGRK234. Friend deliberately disappeared from my life after graduation, so years later I fucked with their music. For the sake of the story, let's call the friend in question B. So, I was friends with B throughout most of college. We were pretty close and would always hang out. I'd drive them places, we'd organize or throw parties together, important for later, and I'd help their partner out with a place to stay or rides whenever they visited, etc. It's safe to say, I thought we were pretty good friends. Sometime during our final year, B, along with a few others, was part of a long and pretty nasty conflict with other people I was acquainted with. This conflict ended up being escalated to the school admin, and they ended up calling in everyone named as a potential witness to testify so that they could have all sides and all info to make a decision regarding the situation. Throughout all of this, B would check in on me and encourage me to speak out, remind me of things that happened, and made sure our story stayed consistent. Throughout this, I felt like I was being a good friend by speaking with the truth and defending my friends from attacks while making sure the other individuals involved would be held accountable for what happened. Fast forward to the week leading up to graduation. I was reaching out to a lot of people so that I could get a meal with them before we all left for good. I tried reaching out to B and the group we were a part of so that we could get a meal together, but got no answer. After insisting, I was told one of them, not the friend in question, wasn't allowed to hang out with people of my gender because their partner didn't allow it. So I didn't press the matter further and decided that I'd just try and see these people individually at some point. Spoiler alert, that never happened. Same thing happened with graduation photos. Didn't get any with B or that group. So, a few days after graduation, I went to send B something on social media, only to realize I was blocked by them on everything. After talking to some other friends who had been abroad, they confirmed that B told people after graduation that they were going to use me to gain leverage during their troubles with the school admin and then block me. Which was shocking to me because this person never showed any signs of disliking me, nor did anything happen for them to feel that way about me. All of this leads us to today, when I found an old device I hadn't used in about 3 years. Turns out B had logged into Spotify on this device of mine for an event but never logged out. And after all this time, I finally got a chance to enact some form of revenge. So I ended up deleting all of their playlists and unfollowing any and all artists/playlists they had saved. By the time I was done, they had no music left and had logged out of their accounts as to prevent anybody from knowing it was me. That's it. Thanks for reading. P.S. Fuck you, B. I sacrificed a lot for you and you never even cared about me. Thank God I'm no longer around you. It definitely fucking sucks that OP's friend group just wiped their hands clean of him after graduation when he couldn't even reconnect with them and they no longer had to see him in person. Definitely felt like he found himself in with the wrong crowd. And considering that there aren't details about what happened, my guess would be OP's probably somewhat embarrassed for aiding B and his friend group in whatever the hell they were in trouble with the school's admin. Which is certainly a shame, but it sounds like OP got mixed up with the wrong crowd and, paid an unfortunate price for it. Here's to hoping that B gets what's coming to him by never being able to find songs that he used to listen to in middle school and high school and forever have those memories lost. An apt consequence, I would say. But on a second note, definitely watch out who you're hanging out with and just try to feel the vibes out a little bit more because sometimes people who might say they're your friends aren't actually, and they're just using you as kind of like a little bit of a, puppet/scapegoat. When I was in elementary school, I used to hang out with a few kids who I thought were my friends, until one day they were throwing rocks at a lower classroom's window, second graders I think, and I wasn't partaking, I was in the bathroom, and when I had come out of the bathroom, I found the school administrator, the vice principal, the principal, and also the kids all pointing at me, stating that I was throwing rocks and I went to the bathroom to hide. I had no idea what was going on. I was then forced, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, to then go and personally apologize to the second grade classroom. And when I had got there and apologized for something that I had no idea what I did, the second grade teacher just looked at me and was like, "Who the hell is this kid?" And then proceeded to give apt descriptions of the kids that were actually throwing the rocks at their classroom window because, don't wear graphic tees and commit stupid fucking shit. So yeah, I got vindication from that and got my ifs, ands, or buts in, but still, it never feels great to be used and pretty much thrown aside by people who you thought were your friends for them to be able to get away with something. And this was in elementary school. This is when I was a child. I can't even imagine doing this kind of fucking bullshit. And actually, yeah, I can. I know people who were still trapped in high school and pulled this shit all the time. Even as adults, mind you. Ugh, gross. The one true hobbit. My dad claimed to be Mexican and severely humbled a lady. My mom and dad were at my mom's company Christmas party years back. There were drinks flowing and, in the elevator, on their way to gather her things with a few colleagues, a lady started to go on a rant about Mexicans. You can imagine what she said, and none of it was flattering. My dad has black hair. He also works outside very often and was quite tan still despite it being winter. Mind you, his heritage is straight up English and Irish, maybe a hint of German. He listens to her rant while the elevator moves, and just before they get off, he turns and says, "My dad is Mexican." The lady went dead white and stumbled over herself trying to apologize. She proceeded to apologize to my mother for about 6 months. Every person in the elevator, aside from this lady, knew my dad was not at all Mexican. Some of them were, though. So, all of them refrained from telling her that he lied. She ended up leaving the company, believing that she had mortally offended her coworkers, actually supervisor's, if I remember correctly, husband with her racist ranting. And I hope she thought twice before she opened her mouth again. So, I'm gonna paint a mental picture here that I think is the situation. So you had the woman who went on the rant, her supervisor, as well as her coworkers, or her equals. Some of her coworkers were in fact Mexican. She still felt it necessary to go on this rant about Mexicans. She was only remorseful when she found out that her supervisor's husband was potentially Mexican. She spent the time trying to apologize to, at least according to OP, only the supervisor in an attempt to undo the potential harm that she caused. It doesn't sound like she made any attempt to apologize to her coworkers for her ramblings. In other words, she was only remorseful for what she said, not because it hurt somebody, but because it hurt her potential at moving upwards in the company. If I were to guess, she does not give an actual shit about who she offends or who she hurts or what her words may do with damage. She only cares that it potentially hurt her prospects of moving up. Also, total tangent, but this is just a fond memory of mine. Probably like 2 years ago, they were finishing construction on a house across the street from me, and every day around lunchtime, a taco truck would pull up, and the dude did not speak a lick of English. So I did my best to try to order in Spanish. When I would wander over there when the construction crews were getting lunch, I would do my best to order, because the food was fucking awesome, and it was cheap, and the dude was so happy to see someone other than the crew, like, just wanting to get some food. It was phenomenal. I don't think he had a permit to be there, but I wasn't gonna snitch. That shit was great. I used to shittily order the green sauce enchiladas with chicken and beef with no cilantro, which I think was roughly enchiladas verdes con pollo y carne pero sin cilantro. But honestly, that was probably jank as shit, but he understood what I meant. And every time it was awesome. All right. I also have the cilantro gene that makes it so cilantro tastes like soap, so that's why I specifically did not want cilantro, because he loaded that shit up with cilantro. Oh my god. I'm sure for someone who loves cilantro, that is amazing, but not for me. All right, let me just say that. Ad Purple 3879. Unsolicited family planning advice didn't get him an answer he liked. A couple of months ago, I went out to visit my parents and some family for the holidays. I took an evening to go visit my aunt and her husband during our trip. Now, I love my aunt's husband. He's a fantastic and loving dad and grandfather and always been one of my favorite people. He's pretty solid in his religious faith, but it translates into love and support for their family in a way that I have always been envious of. Both my kids are unplanned. Having been told before the first that I couldn't have kids, and then my youngest is here despite 3 birth control methods failing, including a condom, Plan B, into a month of the patch. We had another pregnancy less than a year after my youngest was born from failed birth control that I terminated, and my partner went for a vasectomy a month after that. My partner and I currently pay more in daycare than our mortgage, and our oldest has an autoimmune condition. We have no familial support system and are just barely making it financially and mentally, so we've decided our youngest is definitely our last. During this visit, my aunt took my oldest to go work on her Lego advent calendar while I chatted with her husband, P, in the living room, and my toddler played with the dogs. We discussed how cute my little one was, and P asked if we were having any more. All my family knows how my last pregnancy ended because I'm not ashamed of it, so P already knew before asking. I told him no, my 2 were more than enough, and that my partner is sterile now. We don't have the support or funds to care for another without making the 2 we have suffer. He said, "You never know, the next one could be an angel." And I shot back before I could catch myself. Technically, the next one is an angel. We both had a cringe face for a moment, and then he quickly moved on to a new topic of conversation. I know he meant well because he loves his family and grandbabies. His family is everything to him. But it's like it didn't click that most people don't have a supportive family, and having kids these days is expensive and exhausting even with support. Definitely one of the more mild TraumatizeThemBacks because it was very clear he was just trying to make conversation and accidentally spoke where he shouldn't have. Which happens. When you get in the flow of conversation, people can be dumb. I don't think there's a single person here who can confidently say they have never said something out of pocket that they regret or realize in that time, oh shoot, that was not what I should have said in that moment. We've all made those kind of mistakes, and it sounds like that's what OP was dealing with here. And I can't really fault him for fucking up on that line of conversation, but it happens. I don't think anyone here is a villain per se. I think just both people put their foots in their mouths and, had to learn from it in that instance and realized, shit, maybe that wasn't the best thing to say in this moment. And on another note, it is also one of my biggest fears that if when I do have a child, that I won't be able to give them the kind of life that I wish I would be able to. That's probably my biggest fear, if I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Now that things in my life have kind of started to take a bit of an upward turn, looking towards the future, and it's turned into, what if I'm never gonna be able to give my child the kind of life that I wish I could? But that's probably an extremely normal line of mental thought, so I hope that's normal. Catless boy mama. I'd rather have them safe. Years ago, I was struggling with keeping everyone safe on a trip to town. I had a couple of kids on feet and one in a wheelchair. The two on feet were absolutely determined to run away anytime my back was turned. As it happened, there was a pet store right next to the fabric store I needed to go to when one of the kids made a break for it into the parking lot. Instead of heading to the fabric store, I grabbed said child, plopped him on top of the kid in the wheelchair with instructions to not move a muscle, and headed to the pet store instead. When we got inside, I headed straight to the leash and collar aisle and started the process of fitting the two on feet for harnesses and leashes. The kids thought this was a great adventure, and I even let them pick out their own colors. Then here comes some old biddy with her pocket dog. She started out with just huffing and sighing, but within about 30 seconds, she evidently couldn't control herself any longer. "That's the most cruel thing I've ever seen, treating children like dogs." From my crouch position, I replied, I'd rather have them treated like dogs than hit by a car, and then went back to fitting the harness I was working on. All she could come up with, god damn it, I'm sorry, I can't read this without thinking of the, "Oh, is he a rescue?" post when talking about a child on a leash. All she could come up with was, "Well, I guess." Kids got their harnesses and leashes, I got my fabric, nobody got hurt. Later on, when we went to Disney, we had people stopping us and offering up to $100 for the harnesses. "Nope, sorry, you can hit up the pet store for your own." So I will stand by the fact that seeing a child in a leash or harness is just one of the funniest things imaginable because it's goofy looking. You don't expect to see a child on a leash. And it's dehumanizing in all the best ways. "Oh, is he a rescue?" But still, while I find it to be goofy as hell, I understand the need for it. And I would rather see a child running in place, going nowhere, while their parent skillfully clutches the leash, holding them in place while they pick out the Campbell's chicken noodle soup for the night, instead of having that child creating an absolute terror of a mess in the grocery store. I would rather have a goofy situation of seeing them on a leash and harness than having them terrorize me while I'm trying to do something else, or knocking down shelves, or creating messes, and I'm sure many of you would also prefer that. Plus, it's dinner and a show. And who knows, maybe sometimes you get the glory of watching the child AT-AT their parent and, just a lot of room for some goofiness. All the fun, a lot less of the problems. Plus, I'm sure it's a lot easier to keep a 3-year-old contained by using a leash and harness than it would be trying to chase them down in a grocery store while they think they're playing games and you're trying to stop them from running out into the street. No face. Still need a doctor's note? This happened many years ago when I was in 8th grade. I had a horrendous chest cold that lasted for months. I couldn't do anything beyond sitting, standing, walking, or talking without launching into a violent coughing attack that would last for a couple minutes and leave me fighting to breathe. I would cough up so much phlegm that I was basically puking it up. I had gone to the doctors and was put on 3 different inhalers to deal with it. So, one day in gym class, we had to run a mile. I went to my teacher and tried to explain that it was physically impossible for me to run even 2 paces, let alone a mile. Teacher, well, give a doctor's note? Me, no, but I'm telling you I'm way too sick to do it. Teacher, well, without a note, you can't be excused, so you're going to have to run. Just try your best. So, I did in fact try my best. I ran exactly 1 step and launched into a coughing attack 3 feet away from her. She got the whole show of me coughing, fighting to breathe, and ultimately vomiting in the grass. I gotta walk until everyone else finished their mile. So, I basically just recovered from a cold that was a lot like this, where anytime that I would say more than like a sentence, I would just go into a complete coughing rage and pretty much be coughing up a lot of mucus and just gross shit whenever I was trying to record, which is why there was about a 20-day to 3-week break on the channel where I couldn't get shit done. Like, the first video that I got uploaded on the channel, I think it was on the 24th, that took me 4 days worth of intermittent recording to even come close to getting that completed. Then it took 2 days for the next one, and now I'm back to where I can record daily. So we're just churning these fuckers out until I can get back into a solid groove and I'm ahead of schedule and I'm back to having a backlog built. Granted, backlog's still building, not quite there yet. That's also why today's upload's a bit late, because I still gotta build my backlog. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code OZ at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code OZ directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code OZ at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.